I built my entire freelance media company for just over $1,000, thanks to my old boss's epic revenge against a corporation that tried to screw us all over. It all started the day the fire marshal walked in with a work order that would change our lives. The year was 2012. I was working at a specialized electronics store, the kind of place that sold high-end video cameras, top-tier PCs, and the very first 4K televisions. We were situated in an expensive outlet mall, and we were the only game in town, literally the only high-end electronics store for 50 miles. Logic dictates that with such prime real estate, we'd be a massive success. And we were. For 5 years straight, we absolutely crushed our sales targets. I landed the job because I was a gearhead. I'd walked in one day looking for video equipment, and the store manager, a great guy named Arthur, was floored by my technical knowledge. I kept drilling him with specific questions about camera models, and he hired me on the spot. That specific knowledge would become incredibly important later on. One afternoon, while I was manning the camera counter, the mall's fire marshal came in and asked to see the manager. With no customers around, I led him to the back office. "Hey Arthur, the fire marshal is here to see you," I said. Arthur looked up from his desk, puzzled. "Why? No idea. Want me to send him in?" "Sure, give me a moment," he replied. The marshal stepped into the office, holding a clipboard. "Mall management just wanted me to ask when you want me to bring in the construction foreman," he said casually. I glanced at my rather baffled boss. "What? Are we building something?" I asked. Arthur shook his head. "No, I didn't ask for a construction foreman." The marshal frowned, looking down at his paperwork. "Well, aren't you aware of the new high-end clothing store that's going to be built here?" In that instant, Arthur and I locked eyes, a shared wave of disbelief passing between us. The fire marshal, oblivious, handed my manager the work order. There it was, in black and white, a plan for a brand new, overpriced clothing store to be built at our exact location, effectively erasing the only high-end electronics store for miles around. A few days later, Arthur called a store meeting with our whole 12-person team. He'd already given me the okay to tell everyone what I'd witnessed, so the mood was tense. Arthur had confronted corporate, and after some skillful verbal gymnastics, he'd gotten the whole, ugly story. "So, I called corporate," Arthur began, his voice grim. "I'm going to tell you straight. That clothing store has been trying to get a spot in this mall for 10 years. They went to every single store with a buyout offer. The CEO of our chain was approached with a massive, multi-million-dollar check to break our lease and hand over the storefront. We weren't supposed to find out. Corporate's plan was to keep us completely in the dark until our last day of business, which is 2 weeks from today." The room went silent, then erupted in anger. We were all completely pissed off. As one commenter on my story later noted, they wanted to do a no-notice layoff for the entire store? That is cold. It was beyond cold. It was a profound betrayal. From that moment on, every single one of us, including Arthur, did the absolute bare minimum. Our motivation was gone. In a single week, our legendary sales numbers tanked by 70%. This, of course, triggered alarms at corporate, and they sent down a hatchet man to figure out what was going on. This corporate doofus walked in with a clipboard and a condescending attitude, genuinely confused as to why we weren't giving it 110%. The real fireworks started when he smugly informed us that, due to the store's poor performance, we wouldn't be receiving any severance pay or letters of recommendation. The anger in the room became palpable. You could feel the fury radiating from a dozen people who had given years of their lives to this company. Before any of us could say something we'd regret, Arthur stepped in. He very calmly and politely told the hatchet man to leave the store, assuring him that he would take care of the situation himself. The corporate stooge had no idea that his callous announcement wasn't the end of the story, but the spark that would ignite a $400,000 firestorm. After banishing the hatchet man, Arthur retreated to his office. As another commenter would later write, Arthur was a man who methodically thought through everything and still stood up for his people when backed into a corner. He took a close look at the management handbook, and there, buried in the fine print, he found a beautiful little snafu regarding discretionary discounts. The policy stated that a store manager had permission to discount any product in the store by up to 90%. The best part? The offset of that cost would be absorbed in the end-of-year discretionary cost analysis. But our store was being shut down at the end of February. There would be no end-of-year analysis for us. This discovery revealed Arthur's greatest strength, Forged over decades in the brutal retail industry, he knew the corporate rulebook better than the executives who wrote it, and he knew just where to find the cracks. Arthur called another store meeting. The mood shifted from despair to defiant excitement as he laid out his plan. 2 days before our last day, he announced, "We are having a secret, 90% off sale, just for employees and their families." Someone else would later comment, "I guess corporate discounted the ingenuity of your boss." They absolutely did. I raised my hand. "Let me get this straight," I said, asking the question on everyone's mind. "This includes every single item in this store?" Arthur grinned. "Yep. In fact, what you should do is pick out everything you want now. Set up a pile for yourself in the back room with your name on it." He then added the master stroke. "And I'll include the premium service warranties for free." I felt like a kid in a candy store. I went shopping. I picked out a top-of-the-line Sony HD TV, not quite 4K, which was still astronomically priced, but a strange, beautiful hybrid model with motion flow tech that boosted the refresh rate up to 480 Hz. I grabbed a 4K camera system, 3 extra 5-hour batteries, 5 128GB SD cards, and a professional shotgun XLR microphone for high-quality audio. I added a powerful laptop, 2 1TB portable hard drives, a tripod, a car-mounted tripod, an underwater camera housing, an action camera, and a large, professional camera bag with a custom shoulder plate system. To top it off, Arthur told me I could take any of the expensive HDMI and mini DisplayPort cables that were hooked up to the showroom displays. On the day of the sale, we all showed up 2 hours early, using the back entrance. The atmosphere was electric. We quietly and efficiently rang up our piles of gear. With tax, I paid a grand total of $153.69. The retail value of my haul was about $13,000. In one morning, I had acquired all the necessary tools to start my own media business. As one final act of solidarity, Arthur gave all of us the phone number for a caseworker at the local unemployment office. Someone who was sympathetic to our situation and would help us navigate the system. Flash forward to March of 2013. My freelance media company was off the ground. I was shooting music concerts, weddings, and corporate videos, building a steady stream of work. One afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. It was a law firm representing the electronics company. "Sir," the lawyer began, "we're calling because our client's records show that approximately $400,000 worth of electronics were mistakenly sold at a 90% discount last February. We were hoping you might have some information on the whereabouts of your former manager, a Mr. Arthur." I took a breath. "May I ask why you need this information?" I said calmly. "Well," the lawyer replied, his tone full of legal authority, "we believe that he woefully misused his discount privileges." "Okay," I said, "but could you answer a question for me first?" A slight pause. "Sure. Why did your client, the CEO of an international electronics chain, take a multi-million-dollar check to break the lease on his own profitable business, and not bother to properly inform the dedicated staff of its impending closure?" What followed was the most satisfying thing I have ever heard: dead silence. I could hear the faint sound of him breathing, maybe a soft shuffle of papers, but no words. The blustering confidence was gone, replaced by the sound of a man realizing he was on the losing side of a story he didn't fully understand. "Hello?" I prodded. "Sorry to bother you, sir," he mumbled, and hung up. I never heard from them again. The moral of the story is simple: don't screw over your employees. I never saw Arthur again. He was an older guy who had worked his way through all the big box electronic giants and probably moved out of state to enjoy a well-deserved retirement. But he took care of us when corporate wouldn't, and none of us ever sold him out. He gave me the start I needed, and for that, I'll always be grateful. So, let me ask you, what's the most clever act of workplace revenge you've ever witnessed or heard of?